So all these resolutions that people make and they stop and they quit and they fail, you're not going to outlive your own self-image. Your confidence is your memory of previous success. It's you doing what you said you were going to do over and over and over again. And by the way, I talk to myself a lot. I tell myself all the time, multiple times daily, driving over here today, I'm a horse that you bet on. Believe it.
Hell yeah, man.
Okay? Facts. So, and I've said it enough times that I do believe it. And you can feel it when I'm in the room, right? And that's why people do business with me. They can feel the security. And if I lie to myself all the time, you can't go in and fake that, right? You cannot. Yeah. So, and then the other reason that people aren't successful in something is they don't believe in themselves, number one. Number two is they don't believe in what it is that they're trying to do.
What is up, everybody? This is Joe Adams, and welcome to the Relentless Pursuit Podcast. What we do on this podcast is bring in guests from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life, to share their journey and everything along the way that led them to where they're at today. We're here to make an impact. We're here to connect, and that is what we do. So if that is for you, like, subscribe, all those things. And if that is not for you, I don't know what your problem is, but it's time to jump on board. But without further ado, I would love to introduce today's guest, Mr. Nick Hyder.
Hey, baby. Good to be here, Joe.
Yes.
It's an honor and a pleasure, brother, to share the space with you.
Dude, it's an honor to have you here, man. I mean, we don't really know each other. I just know we follow each other on LinkedIn and stuff like that. And I've seen you pop up a million times. And I'm like, well, I'm going to reach out to this guy and get him in.
That's the way it goes. You don't get what you don't ask for.
Exactly, dude. And, you know, people always ask that. They're like, how do you get guests? And I'm like, I just ask them.
That's it.
I can talk to anybody. And that's what it's all about. You just have a conversation with anybody. Just ask them.
That's it.
I could probably go up the street and pick someone up off the side of the road and talk to them for hours. Mm-hmm. And that's cool as shit.
Absolutely.
So it's an art form, though.
Absolutely.
You got to get comfortable doing it. And, you know, you're obviously very comfortable doing this. You know, I get people in here that have been on first time, and you can hear in their voice the nerves. But
yeah, it's funny, the stuff that you worry about in the beginning that really isn't things that you should be worrying about, you know? It's funny.
I butchered my intro for probably the first 100 episodes.
That's right.
And now it's just been smooth sailing. Watch, next episode, I'm going to jack it up.
Well, you know, you can do a recut if you need to.
Hey, that's exact. I'd probably just leave it in. It's real, you know.
That's right.
It's just not perfect all the time.
That's exactly right.
But that said, man, well, welcome. It's good to have you, and let's dive into it, man. What I want to do is, you know, we're going to get into your journey.
Sure.
Because I want to know what led you to today. I don't try to do much research on people if I don't know them that well, just because I want to be new to it.
Sure.
So that said, dive into what you do just briefly now in your life, and then we're going to take it back.
Well, we did, you know, gosh, I too wear a lot of hats. However, it's through a lot of companies, right? So, and all the companies that we're involved in kind of feed each other. They're all connected. You know, I'm the voice of 2 SiriusXM radio stations, which is always a good time.
Sweet.
SiriusXM's The Alternative and SiriusXM's Southern Rock.
Nice.
Love doing that. Of course, we've got the podcast, which has been crushing it for a few years now. And man, you know, I got the Hit Lab Creative Agency, which is I kind of fell into that. I was hiring editors. I was hiring agencies to do the things that my agency does. They fell short. They fell short, and I ended up kind of assembling a great team. And then people started calling to ask to use the studio. They called to hire the team, and I was like, I think we might have a business. Like, I never grew up wanting to do that. That wasn't the intentions of it. However, when the phone was ringing and offers were being extended, it was like, I think we got something here, and it's turned into a great thing. To now, you know, and this year in 2025, we're opening up a new space, a joint venture with Bradley, which is something I'm really excited about. And, you know, I run a merchant processing company. Company's got to be able to accept payments, right? So, you know, we do those things. We still have our original health insurance agency that started it all. And you know, I do a lot of strategy for companies. Yeah. So companies recruit me to come in, whether it be for a short amount of time or a long amount of time, and to kind of just, you know, make sure that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit usually that gets missed. They can't see the forest for the trees. Yeah. And that's true for most companies. You know, I have companies that help me with that exact same thing. Yeah. Right? So it's understanding, you know, what the next what's needed to grow next, and are you aware of that? Is your strategy in place? to grow? Do you even know what you're aiming at? Which is especially with the smaller the companies, a lot of the details get missed. And to be great at anything, sports or anything else, the little things are the big things, right? So that's kind of what we do for people.
Yeah, but, I think that's really cool. It reminded me of the conversation we had off camera. I talked about my friend that's helping me strategize.
Yeah.
He wants all the details and all the stuff so that way he can help me lay out a game plan. I've done a lot of, I've gotten pretty far by myself.
Yep.
And that you can get far doing so, but you can only get so far.
That's right.
You got so much potential in what you do, but you got to lean into your network. And I reached a point a couple months ago, I had leaned into my network. I was like, what can I do? What can I do to offer you value? Like, what can we do together? But this is where I'm at, and this is where I want to go.
Right.
And he reached out, and he's like, Joe, man, I'm going to take care of you, bro.
That's
right.
right.
He said, I'm stoked about it. And it's also cool because someone's willing to offer time that someone else may be paying them a lot of money because they believe in you.
Sure.
And that says a lot in itself. So it sounds like what you do in that regard is very similar. You help people strategize just to scale.
Strategize the scale, and there's a lot of different ways to be involved in that. But, like, at the end of the day, man, like, I'd never been here before, right? So you sent me an address. I typed it in my GPS, and it told me all the ways I can get here, right? There was actually a traffic jam on the way. It rerouted me, gave me a new arrival time.
Yeah.
That simple little exercise that most people do every single day, multiple times a day, they don't apply that to the rest of their life. They get up, you know what I mean? They're like, literally, you have to type in the end destination and work backwards from that. And it'll tell you what time you need to leave. Think about it. I knew what the weather looked like today before I got dressed.
Yeah.
Right?
At least for a moment, Tennessee can be a little flaky, but
that's exactly right. And it's, there's a lot of thought, but like the same things that people do every single day over and over and over again. I know they take it for granted and they don't always apply it in the other aspects of their life that it should be applied.
Dude, 100%, man. Yeah, and much like life too, you're going to get rerouted pretty often. You still but head in that same direction.
That's right.
That's right. That's pretty cool, man. Well, we'll dive more into that stuff. I just want to hear you talk about the things you do, man. You go crazy with it, and you're high speed. I can tell that, and I appreciate that because I'm pretty intense. I like my time just to focus and gear in. I'm probably pretty introverted at most times, to be honest. But I'm a high speed dude. I'm intense, and I appreciate that about you.
Yeah.
Because you get after it. And so before we dive into that, take us back. Young days of Nick. Young Nick, where you from, where you hail from, and, gather some of the experiences that you acquired throughout your life that have influenced you to where you're at today and so on. And we'll take it from there.
Grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. Always we didn't take a lot of vacations. We went to baseball tournaments.
Yeah.
So that was my my childhood, my adolescence, and even through college in my 20s until 27. It was all baseball.
Really?
Okay. So now there's some music tied in there too, which was pretty cool. But Dad was in the music business growing up as a kid. As a publisher, owned a publishing company on Music Row. Did a bunch of production work. He worked with everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And but he came from not much, and we're old school. You know what I mean? So when training, we train tough. Even today, I like to train in the climate that's out there. I don't like HVAC. There's not an HVAC system in my gym. If it's cold, it's cold. If it's hot, it's hot. That's what we do. And it gives me an extra opponent to beat every day, right? So when it's 10 degrees outside and that means it's 15 degrees in my garage where my son and I live, it sucks, and there's no shirts allowed in there.
Yeah.
So it stings. But like when you whoop weather's ass, you feel like you did something, and it's a great way to kick off the day, to have momentum, or even finish the day. Which
I love that.
We do a lot of times.
Yeah, and you get to a point where you're kind of just flowing, and you don't even feel it.
That's right.
You just got to get there.
Well, it's anything that you do over and over again, you grow tolerant to it, and that can be good and bad, right? So again, the weather doesn't. The first 10-degree day every year is the hardest. After that, it gets a little easier and a little easier and a little easier until it's almost like you crave it. And it's like, if it's a day where maybe it's an off day or we don't get that, it's like, dude, I feel like something's missing. Something was missing from today. There was an ass kicking that didn't happen, and I needed that thing. Right?
That's interesting, and it goes along with just like forcing yourself to do something that you don't want to do every day necessarily, right?
Sure.
Does that make sense? Like, I'm on this burpee journey. I'm going for 1 million burpees. I go for about 1,000 burpees a week, and it's just this thing I just started doing, and it's become part of who I am.
Yep.
And there's days that I just blaze through them, whatever number I decide I'm going to hit. And then there's days I'm just like, screw this, dude. And it always sucks, but it's
Yeah.
also very applicable to life. Like, I hit the ground, I'm like, dude, I've been here before. Keep going.
Yeah.
You know, and you get back up and you just keep doing it repetitively. But those things train your mind and train you for life in so many other ways, right? And just like getting up and training in the cold, or if it's, you know, I prefer the cold, but so if it's extremely hot and I'm sweating balls and it's just, I'm like, oh my God, I can't even breathe right now. Like that, you know, that's not my favorite thing, but you get up and you do it anyways.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. Heat doesn't bother me. Like out west, I spend a lot of time out west each year. The desert, I love it. Everybody's complaining about the heat. I'm like, bring it. Now I'm not but that 10-degree weather I do not like.
You don't like it?
However, I've passed out and due to the heat before and woke up and be like, yeah, that was good. Let's do it again. Versus the cold, you never pass out. But no, man, it's it's all about competition and but more importantly, like competing in an empty room. You know what I mean? That's what it's all about. You got to compete in an empty room.
Yeah. You got to do it for yourself, man. And that just forces you to grow in so many different ways.
That's right.
You know, growing up playing baseball all the time, like, was that good or bad? Are you glad for it? You know, because okay, so you don't look back and be like, man, I wish I could have done this or that. You're like glad that was your life,
dude. My whole family was involved in that. So, like we all did it together. My younger sister was there. Like I had grandparents. I had a granddad that never missed a game, like ever.
That's cool.
And I was playing 100 games a year from the time like 13 on.
It's a lot of baseball.
It is. We were very serious about it, and and at the time, not everybody did that. So, especially here, my dad kind of was the one that kind of spearheaded all that stuff. Kind of turned travel baseball in Nashville what it is today.
Oh, really?
You know, so. He gets a lot of credit for that. There's fields named after him and all kinds of stuff. So, but again, like that just kind of taught me the grit. It taught me the purpose. You know, there was some skills that I could have learned along the way that I learned later in business that would have been nice to have learned earlier.
Yeah.
But you know, that information wasn't always accessible, and it was a different world we lived in back then. So
yeah, and maybe those skills. I mean, you know,
we're talking the 1900s here,
right? The early days. Yeah, man. Well, you know. That's funny. But you think about those skills, you know, you could have learned. I think, you know, but learning them when you did was probably necessary for you to grow in that stage of your life, right? Like,
totally.
You know, there's a lot of things I could say that I wish I would have known over the past few years, right? But then I've learned it through experience.
Oh, yeah.
And it's been some hard lessons, but it's been like, it's just built me to someone that's totally different from 3 years ago that I'm like stoked to be. I'm like, dude, no amount of money could ever pay for that experience. So I'm glad for it. And then you just use that and do better, right? And you're like, damn, that was a tough one, but getting through it. You know what I'm saying?
You know, there's no comeback without a setback that's required to happen first.
Yeah.
Right? So the setup triggers the comeback. So and we're all leading the comeback story from something.
Yeah.
From something.
And it's that journey, man, peaks and valleys. You know, playing baseball and stuff like that. I wonder, you know, getting older, right? You play baseball anymore? I mean,
no. When I played my last professional game, and I knew that was it for me. Like I didn't quit, I finished. There's a difference. They look and smell a lot alike, but quitters and finishers, quitting and finishing something is, you know, a lot of times it gets mislabeled. I was done, and when you play at that level, you know, to get ready sometimes for the season, there was some decent men's leagues here at the time, and I would go and, you know, that was a great way to just get some reps before I went down to Florida.
Yeah.
And some of those guys take that extremely seriously to the point where it's not even healthy or realistic. And I was like, so when I was done, I was done. And it was only a couple years that I was finished that my son was born. And after that, all my focus was kind of on him. So he loves it. He's pretty good at it. Actually, he's really good at it. And I love watching him play. So it's his turn to do that now. But at the same time, I'm teaching him all those mindset and life lessons that I've learned the hard way after baseball. He gets to learn them during baseball.
Yeah. What would you do if he was like, I don't want to play baseball?
Cool. What do you want to do?
Hell yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Do something.
It's his life. He's actually really good at musics and the arts. At 11 years old, he was cast as a lead in a Broadway musical, which is cool.
That's really cool.
You know, so and you know, he's all about baseball. It's funny. You know, he gets to compete against older guys as an underclassman. He's a freshman. He actually got to play some varsity time as an 8th grader last year, which was great. But he's been playing music with college level and above and professionals like since he was an early teen. So I guess technically he's better at music and the arts, but his heart is with baseball. But like I can't think of anything more fun to do than play the game that I love most with the dude that I love the most. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a great time.
That's super cool, man. I mean, is that your only kid?
I have two. I have she'll be 4 in April. So I have next month. So I have a 3-year-old daughter.
When in April?
So April 7th.
Okay, cool. My birthday's the 6th. I'll be 35, but my daughter turns 2 April 27th. So,
all right.
Yeah, man.
All right.
Little girl, dude.
Little girls are different.
Bro.
They're different.
There's
but
nothing like it.
No, there's not. And it's like, your best friend. I was writing down the other day. I love to think and understand, like, purpose and who I am, who people are to me, and so on and so forth. And somebody asked me the other day, Nick, who are you? And I'm like, well, I'm the result of all of my immediate family put together. And like, what does that mean? I'm like, well, my son is like, he's like my rock. He's like a piece of me, like literally, like, you know what I mean? I'm like not living through him, but like it's kind of happening. You know what I mean? He's living through me, and so on and so forth. My daughter is the love of my life. Like, it's just different. It's a feeling you can't describe. Oh, yeah. But my wife is the most important of all because, at the end of the day, she's my relationship with Christ. I wrote down that she was my eternal life. Like, that's the most important of all. So, and there's no way to say, describe the love that comes with that.
It's interesting you say that because, like, I feel the same way towards my wife. When you have a kid, people are like, it's them above everything else. And I'm like, well, my wife's first. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, because my daughter's a result of mine and her relationship. If we don't focus on each other as number one, then the rest of it falls apart.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? And so I always, if anybody ever asks me for advice, I'm like, prioritize your wife always, because
and that's biblical.
Yeah. It's very important, so, and I love her to death, man. I mean, and because of our relationship, our daughter's going to thrive.
Facts.
But I will say, and you probably get this because you said your daughter's like the love of your life. I was explaining to somebody, if I had a son, I'm going to love him a lot. Like, I'm going to treat him well, but I'm going to be a little bit more intense with my son just because I know how I am towards myself as a man.
All day.
But your daughter softens you a bit. Like, you're still going to hold her to a standard, but it's that she softens me in a way like I know a son wouldn't. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. I mean, again, it's a very unique thing. My son is going to be leading a household one day, right? So I got to prepare him for that.
Yeah.
Again, daughter's different, and I'm not going to say that she's not brilliant and won't be a CEO or a badass one day.
Yeah. But
she may just be a homemaker, and my wife is a great one, but my wife is also a badass businesswoman.
Yeah.
And she does both. She carries way less weight in our businesses now than she used to, but you know what? We have a lot more that we're responsible for personally now.
Yeah.
We've got rental properties and multiple locations for offices and all this kind of stuff. And she's kind of like the aggregate to our CPA to make sure that things are going good and everything else. So she does. I mean, I'm that person that, like, when I'm at the airport, she's got this massive itinerary. She knows all these different things. And I'm like the person that's like, where are we going?
Yeah, right.
Where are we going? Well, like, I'm packing my bags and I'm like, what do I need again? So it's shit, dude, I couldn't do it without her.
It's extremely important. My wife has a job, but, like, my goal is to create the income that she could quit her job and be the full-time homemaker. If that's all she wants to do, great. Like, to me, motherhood is the most important job that there is.
Yeah.
And I think, society is, like, pulled back from that, but I also see kind of a resurgence in that understanding. Like, it actually is very important, and a lot of women are trying to, like, bridge towards, like, that.
Facts.
Or like the sourdough era. Trust me, my wife makes the best sourdough in the world. She's
right.
doing her thing. She's cooking all this stuff from scratch. She's an intentional mother. We want to do the homeschooling, all that stuff. And but I also want her a part of my business. I hate messing with the financial stuff. I just hate it. I know what I'm good at. And so, like, she would be really good to have in control of that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's good when your partner can be a part of your business in a way that only helps it grow more.
Sure.
And they take over some essential stuff. And for some reason you click together to where, they're going to take the stuff that you don't want to mess with and vice versa. Right.
Facts.
So my wife doesn't want to be a face of a brand. She doesn't want any of that, but that's my role. You know what I'm saying? So you definitely get all of that. Back to school, I guess, were there any, like, very significant, outside of baseball? Seems like you were just, like, hard charged with all that. Your family was very tight. Would you say there were some very significant or monumental moments in your childhood that maybe, impact you today still?
I mean, there's too many to list. I had great parents. My dad was always the coach. He's the only guy I ever played for until I got to high school, college, and pro. And my mom was the center of everything. The dugout mom, the room mom. Our house was the one that everybody came over to play. And so on and so forth. So my parents were unbelievable, and they are the two most influential people in my life for sure, both of them.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely,
I love that.
Absolutely. So there's too many moments to list. But the biggest impact moment that changed my trajectory to where I'm today, 32 years old, and I'm still figuring a lot of stuff out. And I too used to be a guy that hated the financial part of it.
Yeah.
What I figured out was, how can I truly make great decisions on the business if I don't understand the bloodline of it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I had to get really good at that. And it's crazy. I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and it changed my life. Okay. So I just understanding that money and finance is just a language. Mm-hmm. Just learn how to speak the language. Okay. And it changes everything, because now all of a sudden you realize, again, can't see the forest for the trees. I had access to things that could make me build faster and more efficiently and scale. And but by ignoring those things and just saying, trying to feel like I could do it without it, I was mistaken. I was wrong. I was wrong, dude. And especially the bigger you get and the more stuff you get, like, when you launch and you're helping people with business. Business is all about solving a problem for money. Yeah. Right. That's what it's all about. So if you remove 50% of that equation, that's a lot of unknown. Yeah. And until, how good of an asset was I to anybody else if I couldn't explain to them, you're in this for revenue and for money to provide for your family and provide jobs for other people and so on and so forth. How can, walk me through what that looks like if you don't want to just, kind of dive in and get your hands dirty with it. Right. So I didn't do that. I was the same way. I was the same way. Yeah. I was the same way.
I'm right there with, and as I said, like, I'd love to pass that on to her, but like, I want to gain that understanding along the way. It's just like producing and stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, dude,
that's way harder. What you're doing in here is way harder.
I know, right? And it's one of those things, like, I had to learn it. I had to adapt and learn this. And now I've acquired this skill set. So it's the same thing with the financial end, right?
You're a creator. Yeah. And the money seems like it's not a creative thing, but check it out. You get to create money.
Yeah. It's not a bad thing.
No, new sources of revenue.
Exactly, dude. Well, I've had some, an old friend of mine was like, it's just, here I'm busting my ass. And it's like, it's not about the material. And I'm like, okay, listen, I get it. Like, I'm all about the eternal stuff and the righteous action. Like, that's my whole purpose, man, is the impact and do powerful things. But more money is going to create more capability to do that. It's going to allow me to do that on a greater scale. Guess what? It's also freedom for my family, for our opportunity, and everything there. So that's going to be a pursuit. Yeah.
Money's just, imagine the person that built your house. They've got their hammer in their tool belt, but they don't know how to use it. How good are they going to do building that home? You know what I mean? So money's just a tool, and it's the most important and sharpest one in your tool belt. So, like, make sure that you are the best and most efficient at using that tool.
Oh, yeah. Well, listen to what you're saying. It's, like, so applicable to my life. I spent a lot of time, just pouring from an empty cup. Pouring and pouring and pouring. Yeah. But then I'm at a point in my life where, like, I'm still going to do so, but it's, okay, you need to have those actions reciprocated. Like, hey, when you're getting low, like, you got to be surrounding yourself with people that are going to pour back and forth. That way you both grow, not only as individuals, but on a financial scale too. Yeah. And that's how you really just take shit over.
Well, again, it's a tool. So even, I used to hire really smart people with money, but like we weren't speaking the same language. So it's kind of like, I'm better fit to help my son's baseball team now that he's 15 than I was when he was 6, because I did it at such a high level. The hardest thing for me was speaking to those kids in a language they could understand. I was creating that same problem. I was the kid, and my CPA or my finance guys were speaking to me, and like, they're like, dude, like, honestly, like, I can't tell you what I need to tell you because you don't know what I'm talking about. And I was like, and no offense, but like, I don't care about your money as much as you should. Yeah. And I was like, so, I'm telling you to make decisions, and I don't care about it as much as you do. So like, at the end of the day, it's your decision and your call. And I can give you the information to make that decision, but whether you comprehend it or not, that's up to you. And, and I was making a lot of poor decisions on some really, really good advice. Yeah. How does that happen?
Yeah. Well, you learn from it, right?
That's right. And finally, and your standard's what you tolerate. Yeah. And finally, just one day I was like, I don't tolerate this anymore. Right. And I read that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then a whole bunch of books after that. And then I started realizing that all the people that I looked up to, all of them spoke money. Yeah. There was zero exceptions.
Yeah.
Why would I think I'm the one?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why would I think I'm the one? And I could have been, but how much longer would that journey have taken to figure that out? And that wasn't what I was here. I wasn't here to find out, am I the exception to the rule or not?
Yeah.
I was here to grow a business, right? And to grow things that are gonna provide the life and the community impact that we want to make.
Yeah.
Right. So that's it.
You just got to look at it differently.
Facts.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not selfish to think about those things.
That's right.
I think that's when that's your only pursuit and that's all you care about. That's a little bit different. But I can tell you're not in that, you're not in that ball field.
Dude, I love being able to, because again, I was good at other things that a lot of those other CPAs and stuff weren't good at, right? So if I become what they're good at, then I'm like well-rounded. It's a totally different thing. And not a lot of people that are good with money, look and act like a guy like me does. You know what I'm saying? So like I like being that. When I sit at the table with a whole bunch of really smart money people, I don't look like them. And that's makes me stand out. And that's I'm in the attention game.
Yeah, and dude, I'm gonna learn it so that way, like, I also bring that same kind of flair to the table.
Dude, nobody that speaks money is gonna look like you, and that is your advantage all day long.
Yes,
they're gonna be like, "Who is this dude?"
Yeah, dude, that's a fact, man. You gotta play into who you are, man,
That's right.
and then take advantage of all that. Real quick before we dive into some other things, where did you go? I don't know much about your baseball past. I saw you said you played professional ball.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I'm not, to be honest, I don't really follow sports. I grew up playing sports. I played baseball for a long time. Football was my thing in high school, and I box now. But over time, just the last several years, I've just been so focused on like intentional with my energy.
Yeah.
That I just don't pay attention to sports at all. I'm not saying that people that watch sports aren't intentional. It's just like it distracts me.
Sure. Well, it is a distraction.
So I don't watch. I couldn't tell you who's playing for who, who's going to. I didn't even know the Super Bowl was happening until like Super Bowl Sunday.
I asked my wife the day before the Super Bowl who was playing.
Yeah, see, but it's also really nice to be detached from all that stuff.
Well, it's my belief that or opinion that people put too much stock in that. I have favorite teams, and if they win or lose, it doesn't change my life one bit. As a matter of fact, right? So when people are super fans, and again, I have no problem with that. But when you are a super fan and your team loses and it ruins your day or ruins your production or takes you off your path or whatever it is you're put here to do. I would say you need to check that.
Give them bread and circuses, and they won't revolt.
I would say you need to check that.
Yeah, man. I've known people that are like, the Vols lose, and they're like, their week's ruined.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why?
I mean, it's a shame to give that much power away.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we're only in control ourselves. With the election. I don't really get political. I'm not a big politics guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just. I think we need to just press reset a long time ago with it all. But that's just like my personal opinion.
Yeah.
But it's like, had whoever won the presidency, that next day I would have woke up and I put my shoes on and came and done my damn thing.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Yeah.
And because I can't control all that. All I can control is my actions. And I would just move with it that way, you know what I'm saying, and adapt.
Yeah. I mean, it's, it's understanding what's going on and you do have a voice, but if that, again, how big is your voice and how big of an impact does it make? At the end of the day, it's a vote.
Mm-hmm.
And then, are you letting the consumption dominate the rest of your life when really the only thing you can do about it is a vote? Yeah. So, on a local level, you can make change.
Yeah, for sure.
But everybody's so focused on the big election that, maybe the little ones are the ones that people should be focused on just a little more.
Yeah, focus on your area.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So with the baseball, where'd you go to college, and who'd you play for, like, as a pro?
Trevecca Nazarene University, and here in Nashville, and then a guy by the name of Fred Ferrara gave me a shot. There, I have something happened medically in college that kind of made me put a red flag on my thing. Nobody was ever going to really pay me, just due to financial risk, and it's a business, and I get it now. I didn't back then, but a guy named Fred Ferrara, the late great Fred Ferrara, who was with the Marlins and the Expos, gave old Nick a shot and put me in the minor league system and helped me negotiate some deals and gave me a path that was very unique through the system, and I did it for 5 full seasons and a 6th season on the IL or the inactive list, and then I just got tired of being broke. I got tired of being broke at 27. I was broke, and it was fun, but like at the end of the day,
like physically or financially?
Financially.
Okay.
Physically, I was in tip top shape, but. at the end of the day, what happened, what it truly comes down to is my goal was always play pro ball. I did that. I wasn't a good goal setter. I wasn't good at targets. The target was too vague. If my target was catch at Yankee Stadium, maybe that's what I would have got to. But it wasn't. It was to play pro ball.
Interesting.
Right? So my son, his goal is to play center field at Yankee Stadium. He's a better goal setter than old Nick is.
Dang. And I really thought about that.
Yeah, again, if your target's vague, are you considered a good shot?
I think about that. Like, I got this vision that only I see, right? And I always say, like, I wrote this down on my board the other day. It came to me in meditation. Your vision, don't let go of your vision because nobody's going to hold it for you.
That's right.
So never let go of that. But what does that look like? Is it just this huge thing? And it's going to change over time. But
dude, Brad told me something one day.
Brad
told me something one day. He was like, if you're going to buy a house, you've got your dream home. Like, let's say you got a vision board. But the problem is most people just put a picture of the house up there.
Yeah.
He was like, see, if you really want to dial that in, like, where is your chair going to sit in the living room, and what wall is your TV going to be on? That's different. He was like, don't just dream about if you wanted a jet. Well, instead of just dreaming about the jet, what letters are you going to put on the seats inside the jet? He's like, that's the difference between the top 1% and everybody else. And dude, there's a lot to that. Again, as a parent, I really gauge how effective my wife and I are with our son and daughter, but our son, because he's 15, he's closer to leaving, by two simple decisions. Does he know and love Jesus Christ? And number two is, are we teaching him to make choices that are in line with what he feels like he's called to do, which is he wants to play center field at Yankee Stadium. So again, when if it's all, I don't know anybody. I know a lot of professional athletes. I don't know anybody personally that played center field at Yankee Stadium. Out of all those people, that's how rare of an instance it is. So it's like, Ethan, when all your friends are going to the school basketball or the football game, or not eating as good as they could, not nourishing their body, not doing those things. They're not, is that football game taking you further or closer to Yankee Stadium when you make those decisions? That's it. So again, I'm not saying you shouldn't go to football games and have fun and be a kid, but again, did you get all your work done first that was required for today to get where you want to go, and then do all those things that you want to do, right? So, and as a teenager, that's the hardest thing to do, because on one hand, like I think at 15, you're excited to drive, you're excited to leave, but dude, you look at that playground over there and you still want to go play on it. Like, it's a tough place to be as a teenager.
Yeah, you're like, damn it, man. Yeah, I'm missing out. You get the FOMO.
Yep.
It's interesting too. I hear, your story, and you're playing ball, and like that drive was instilled pretty early, and you had it, and you just kept, you went.
My dad is the toughest person I've ever met by a lot.
Really?
By a lot. Now I shouldn't say that. My son is the toughest person I've ever met now.
Yeah.
Dude, he's freaking iron. Brutally tough. But before that, like, even at this day, my dad's 75 years old. He can still push. He can still bench press 225. As a matter of fact, on his 65th birthday, he did it 25 times.
Dude.
Like, I mean, he's a house, and I've only known him to be sick 3 or 4 times in my entire life. That's just how tough he is. He got sick all the time, just like all of us do.
Yeah.
But like, he don't miss work.
Yeah.
He don't, like, I'm telling you, he's like, it's unreal how tough that dude is.
Yeah, that's super cool, man. I think about my father, and like, I didn't have like that drive early on. I think it's kind of crazy to reflect on, because that drive didn't really kick in. Like, I was always good at things, but I was like, I want to play pro football. Dude, I did not bust my ass hard, and I did not do what I needed to do to play football. And like, the fact that I had that expectation is ridiculous. And a lot of people do that. They just think it's going to happen. But I didn't apply myself, and that shifted all after my motorcycle wreck. Like, it took that event. Yeah. But then I reflect on it now, and I analyze my dad, and I appreciate so much, because that dude, one, he did whatever he had to do to take care of his family. And that's something I appreciate. And then now, like, when it comes to taking care of myself, same. My dad's his 60th birthday, he competed in the World Championship Ironman, and he still does Ironman competitions. My mom does competitions too. And like, that's tough shit, man. In your 60s, I'm like, that is so bad, It's
hard in your 40s, ain't it? Like, I'm like, man, I couldn't do that right now in my 40s. It'd take a minute.
Exactly, man. And so just that commitment to that, right? Just like that that takes a lot of training every single day and a lot of money too. It's not a cheap sport.
Sure.
And you just love that, man. And that's some tough stuff. So
Absolutely.
you got to appreciate those things, man. It's good when you can reflect on your parents in different ways, especially as you grow older and wiser and you understand different aspects that maybe just pop up and you're like, hell yeah. So I appreciate it from them. But okay, so now let's dive into some of what you do. Some of the stuff we were talking about off camera. Actually, real quick, when did you start your family?
So my son was born in 2009, and daughter was 21, I guess. Yeah, 2021.
Yeah, when did you meet your wife?
I met her in 2003. We worked at the same place. She was the girl that I chased for about 6 or 7 years before I finally got that real phone number and that real first date.
Dang.
She was always pawning me off on her
She played
friends.
hard to get?
Again, I wasn't apparently. So I was that guy that always knew. Like I always knew that I was called to do what I'm doing today. But I didn't understand that I had to go get it. I always kind of thought somebody was just going to see that and say, "Here it is."
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to realize that. And that kind of goes. It's the same thing with her.
You were like, "Hey, I'm here," but that wasn't enough.
Nope, it wasn't. And she, the joke around our house is my mom and my grandmother, kind of helped really raise me. But then, I left before they were done, and my wife had to finish the job. So,
Yeah.
And so, maybe she looked at me and saw somebody that wasn't that she didn't want to raise anybody. She wasn't wanting to raise anybody at that time.
Yeah, you just need some refining, man.
That's it.
So, hey, we always do. I think that happens every single day.
Absolutely.
I'll be refining for the rest of my life, and I'm cool with that. So, and you were talking about something off camera with your son's baseball and correlation with something with business. And honestly, we got off subject and it skipped my mind. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. So at the end of the day, we're here to learn to make choices. But as the coach of my son's team, since he was 5 years old, it's really important that you're managing expectations. Just like in a business, there's a group of people. On a baseball team, there's a group of people, and there's families involved. And a lot of time and money is invested into that experience. So, in anything else that you invest, there's a return on investment that gauges how the experience was.
Yeah.
How can the coach manage those things if that's not clearly communicated, right? So I ask before this season, I ask all of the kids on his 15-year-old travel team, the young men, I should say. There's two questions I got for you. Number one, how do you gauge after the season's over, if it was a successful season for you, if it was a good season or not? Is it based on playing time? Is it based on we won? Is it based on, I had a good time in the summertime with friends? What do you like? How do you gauge that? And because that's very important. And then the second question is these are all underclassmen now that are trying to get the attention of a coach that's over and above older classmen.
Yeah.
And not to mention college coaches, JUCO coaches, or even pro coaches, right? They all want to play Major League Baseball at 15, right? So you're in the attention-grabbing game. So what's the one thing that you bring to this team nobody else can bring, and does your coach know that, right? Because, again, there's going to be a situation that happens in that game where he's looking and saying, who's the best fit person for this situation? And if he doesn't know that that's you, he's not going to choose you. He's going to choose the wrong person. So being that's, and of course, when you say that to those two kids, it was over their head. So I told him, I'm like, come back next week and let's give me your answers. Take a whole week to think about it. And we'll sit there and I want to talk about it with everybody in front of everybody, because your teammates need to know what's important to you.
Yeah.
Because they can help hold you accountable. And your teammates need to know what you're best suited for, right? So that they can lean on you in that situation. It's all about communication. Think about a business.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody's got a role. Right. And are they in the right role? Are they the person that's best suited for that role? Again, like anytime that anything that I've done wasn't as good as it could have been or even failed, it came down to two things. Number one was communication. There's been zero problems in the history of mankind where we look back and we're like, they communicated too good and it caused that problem.
Facts,
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it was communication, or I had the wrong person assigned to the role that wasn't what they're qualified to do.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and it goes back to a marriage. People use the word communication a lot, but do you really? Fighting isn't communicating. Are you actually having those conversations and relaying the things that need it? that are needed, right? That's how you grow together, and it's the same thing within a business. So
that's right.
I mean, obviously, that's a point for me to pay attention to as I grow down the road. And I think that's a very important thing, and it's a really good lesson too that you're teaching those kids.
Absolutely.
You know, I love that because there's nothing wrong with just wanting to coach some kids for fun.
Yeah,
and I'm sure there's a lot of people that do that. But if you can give them life lessons that give them nuggets of gold that they can carry for the rest of their life and apply to everything, then that's just going to make them so much better.
You know, I can say I don't get paid to do it, but I do, because every one of those kids and those families opted in to be there, and not everybody at work always does. Right? Sometimes the people are at work because they have to be, and those kids are there because they want to be. So I actually learn more from those families and those kids and that's stuff that I can apply in the workspace.
Yeah.
Right? I learn more from them than I learn from most of the people that I work with.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what's in it for old Nick.
Yeah, sometimes the greatest value doesn't have a dollar sign.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Dude, that's really cool. So what are some of the aspects of your business, you know, of, I guess, all your business that you would say today are the most essential?
Well, first of all, you know, with the surgeons, it ain't even a surgeon. It's been going on for a while, of social media, and mobile devices. So people on average are spending 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day looking at a screen.
Crazy.
It's my opinion that if they don't see you there, they will not be doing business with you. They will be doing business with somebody that they saw there.
Truth. Right.
So, for me, it's extremely important to be visible. They can't do business with you if you're non-existent and they don't even know you exist. Right.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing. And then, but now everybody's got a phone in their pocket, and now, you know, 3 years ago, not everybody believed in this and was doing this, or at least making an attempt to do it and doing it well. So now all of a sudden, you know, quality and production is starting to stand out, right? So before it was like, if you didn't have a social presence, then, you know, it's kind of like not having a website. How credible is that business? But now it's like, when you look on there, it's like, how good is it? You know, because that's a brand asset, and, you know, it's kind of like think about it this way. If it was a restaurant, let's just say the restaurant has the best steak in town, dude. You know, the best steak, the best carrot cake. It's unreal. But the outside of the building looks like it's been abandoned. You got to walk through, you know, a really rough crowd that's flicking cigarettes at you through the parking lot to get there. You're not going in, because you're going to say, I'm, you know, judging by the book by its cover. I can't get past that to even get to appreciate the quality inside. It's got to match.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people will judge a book by its cover.
That's right.
You know, not some of us might just like walk through it and be like, let's see what's on the other side. But not everybody's going to do that same thing.
Well, you know, again, so when they're like, I'm considering doing business with this person, what will they be accessing, and what opinions will they be forming from those? So for me, production was always, it had to be top notch, had to be better than everybody else's, and it has to continually evolve, because it's forever changing and quick, and you got to be quick on your feet. You got to know what's coming next, and you know, think about it this way too. Podcasting, for instance, you know, in 2020, I thought podcasting was stupid. I didn't believe in it. And then I went on the real Brad Lee's podcast, Dropping Bombs, and I changed my mind real quick. I got new information, right?
Bro.
I changed my belief.
Yes.
So that's what started the whole journey for me in the podcasting world, in the studio space, and the brand development stuff through video assets and all that, was that one podcast episode with Brad in Las Vegas at a studio, because I saw it and I was like, this is it. This is what we've been missing. This is totally the future. So podcasting started out just like radio did. Average quality at best audio. Then it got better. Then they added a not so great video element to it that was called television. And then podcasting did the same thing. Now, dude, like TV, it's shot with the same cameras, using the same actors. Like a lot of these shows we're watching, it's a 6-hour movie, just an hour per episode in 6 episodes, versus a 2-hour movie that don't have any breaks.
Yeah.
It's the same exact thing, right? And so like TV and movies, it's just in where you watch them and how they're delivered. That's the only difference in them now, in my opinion, right? Yeah. And so at this, you know, we're the stuff that we're building today for video assets and everything else, it's the same gear that they're shooting these movies and TVs with, right?
Facts.
You know what I mean? So the quality's got to be there, and you got to have people like the directors, the camera guys, the screenwriters, the caption writers, all those things on let's just say in Hollywood at the highest levels, they're extremely good at what they do. Have a very sharp skill set, a very specific skill set. that's, again, who's doing, like, I'm not an expert at editing, so I need one.
Yeah.
Right. And my dad always said, Dad in the music business, Dad had a band for a long time. He's like, if I'm the worst person in the band, we're really good.
Yeah.
I feel that way about my business. If, I got Trent over here off to the side. He's better at that than I am. Right. That's why he's here. So I want to surround myself that are better at their skill set than I can be. And that means I'm going to be real strong.
Dude, everything is so relevant to my life too, man.
Yeah.
And in my trajectory, like I had a guy that did produce my stuff, and we parted ways. It was necessary, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I took it upon myself. But one of the first things I did when I moved into space is I built a serious studio.
Mm-hmm.
That way, when people looked at it, they're like, "Oh, that guy's legit."
Mm-hmm.
I cared about it. I was like, "Dude, we're starting very beginning.
That's
right. I'm starting. I wanted to look professional. That way, when people watch it, they're like, "Yeah, I want to be on that show."
Mm-hmm.
That guy obviously cares about what he does. And then as I took on the production on my own, I learned that like the past was in 4K. Well, I got 4K capability.
Mm-hmm.
I'm uploading it at 4K.
Yeah.
Average people may not really pay attention to that stuff, but there's going to be people that are paying attention to that stuff, and that stuff matters. It's every little detail, right? So when I go through and edit, I'm watching every scene, making sure it's on the right person. I'll go through and edit, and then when I make my clips, it's got the same font, my logo in the corner. It's consistent as hell because over time, the more you post, people are going to see, boom. Oh,
It
wait.
adds up.
Wait, I recognize that. Let's go subscribe. Let's watch more of what they got because they've been on here for like the past year just popping up. And I think it's very important. But guess what? I know where I want to go as an individual. Eventually, I'm going to pay someone to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And now, yes, I'm going to have an expectation, but my real expectation is for me to go to someone and be like, all right, this is what I expect. And they're going to be like, that ain't shit, dude. I'm about to blow this out of the water. And I'm like, yes, sir.
That's it.
That's what you want, man. You want to surround yourself and your team and build a team of people that are going to be a part of what you're doing, but they're going to force you to level up. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And it seems like you've done that, man. The team's essential. You can't get anywhere without it. And over time, I'm going to be doing the same kind of thing.
Think about it. Like all the sports fans out there, let's say it's the NFL. They would agree that, the quarterback of their team is an expert at the game of football and at his position, right? So, but they won't apply that same knowledge in the rest of their life. Like that, you like they'll call this bum. They'll call him a bum. He sucks and so on and so forth. But they can't say the same thing about people in their own personal life. You know what I mean? So, it's again just applying the things the things that you do in life. You just have to be able to. Are you aware that that's happening? And two, how can you apply that to the other aspects of your life? So they're probably a great fan of that team, right? So if you're a great fan and you know all that about that team, do you know that about your craft? Do you know that about your own skill set? Do you know that about your own self? And think about it. If you flip the quarterback in the center and you make them switch positions, now the offense is going to suck. Like they're out of position, right? So again, making sure that people are in the right position. Based on what they're great at and how they can make their impact. Brooke Thomas defined the word impact. She said, it's when you take your God-given uniqueness and apply it to the marketplace. And I was like, dang, that's good.
Yeah.
Right. So that's when you make an impact.
Yeah. Dude, that's a nugget right there. Mm-hmm. I've never heard that. So I think that's really legit.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah, man. And I was thinking about this too, when you were talking about the team aspect and exactly, you know baseball and all that stuff, right? And I'm into boxing. I love individual sports as well. I think there's beauty to all of it. But guess what? Even that person that's boxing or they're bodybuilding or whatever, they still didn't do it on their own. They got the coach that they rely on. Like the best in the world at bodybuilding, right? Yeah, he gets up there and does the thing, but there's some other people behind the scenes that make him the best in the world.
There's at least 3 mad scientists back there, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that applies to anything in life, man.
Yeah.
Like I said, you can only get so far solo. And I'm on this like kind of solo journey, but I'm leaning into resources and stuff like that. And that's very important. But I know once I can, delegate things out to the right individuals, then it's just going to take things to a whole nother level.
Yeah, and having the framework and the processes, for all that communication, because when a task is passed off, how do they let you know when it's done, or if they ran into issues along the way?
Did you have problems like, giving up control on certain things?
Sure, I had problems with everything. I had problems with every aspect of it,
yeah.
Right? And but that's how and I fought a lot of things way too long. And finally, again, it's like, am I going to tolerate this any longer? And what's required? More importantly, like study the success of others. That's my whole brand position statement. Breaking down the playbook of top performers so you can have the same success too, right?
Yeah.
So that's huge. What are the top performers doing? And again, why would I consider myself the exception to the rule if there isn't one yet?
Yeah.
Right. So just think about that. It's when you can put things that way, I take what I do seriously, but not myself.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I'm just Nick. I'm a normal dude, and I'm no more special than anybody else.
Yeah.
But what I do is
special.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah, man. I did. Given all the, the technological stuff that you're talking about, with the production and all that stuff, that's so important, man. Like I'm right there with you. Make it look the best it can, even if you're starting off.
Yep.
Or at least the best to your capability.
Mm-hmm.
Now with the AI model being implemented into the podcast space, what's your thought process on that? I've got mine, but.
Yeah, I mean, well, so and again, it's technology that's not going anywhere. But all AI it's artificial intelligence, right? So it can be, it has to be programmed. So it's only as good as the information you feed it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's scraping the internet or some source of information that you told it to scrape from for that information. So in the world of single person businesses like real estate agents, insurance agents, mortgage professionals, things like that. They all end up having teams, appointment setters, people for each, whether it be, for enrollment or anything else. But at the end of the day, there's value. Data surpassed oil as the most valuable commodity on earth years ago, like about 10 years ago, I guess, give or take. So what does that mean? It means data is just information about you that lives online, that's accessible to others. So and data is just details about you as a human. So think about it this way. If, people that know you, they know certain things about you.
Yeah.
Right. And so that means they take that information and they can use it however they want to benefit them, to benefit you, to benefit others, whatever it may be. Hey, I know a guy you need to know, right? Yeah. I know you need tires. This is my best tire guy.
Yeah.
Right. They know those things. Well, that's all data is at the end of the day. It's information about you. Okay. And data, how accurate is it? Right. So like a lot of times people will buy online leads or data and they'll have first name, last name, date of birth, email address, phone number, stuff like that. But the email address is out of date. Right. So it's not accurate data. So how accurate is your data? And then you can use artificial intelligence to communicate with that data to at least find out, hey, I heard you were looking for something that I might be able to help you with. Is that true? It can ask basic surface level questions and filter down so that you can spend the most amount of time helping customers that actually want your help versus marketing to people that don't actually need or want your help.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So in the world of podcasting, I put it to you this way. So there's some good AI tools out there, and I think they're relevant. I teach them when people are getting started and they're DIYing it because of time. All my editors, we don't use any AI.
Yeah.
They sit there and they watch the footage.
Yeah. I feel you.
And they pull it out the best. And that's been tough, especially with the emergence of it. But we tried it. But the AI is never going to replace a human. Though it is good because it can't care.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have a heart. But it definitely has a place. And, in the world of insurance, the first thing you do once you get good at it and you're scaling up is you hire an appointment setter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, dude. Well, guess what? Appointment setters get sick. They get stuck in traffic. They need vacation days and all that stuff. And a good AI model that's trained perfectly does not. And it's a great way to qualify down. So now you're just talking to people that, instead of, talking to 100 people, you're talking to the 10 people that the AI said, yeah, man, these people, you might need to talk to this person.
Yeah. You talked about fighting it, man. That's one of those things I fought. I'm like, nah, man, I'm a real human. I'm letting those machines take over. And then I was like, wait, and I kind of downloaded ChatGPT, right? And I got the subscription and I started talking to it.
Yeah.
And then I just started talking to it about my life and my business and everything like that. And it just really, I was like, dude, this is actually extremely valuable.
Yeah.
And it's not going anywhere, man. So how can I utilize this to assist me? One, I'm doing this solo, so it helps me be a lot more efficient.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to the podcasting thing, what I'm big on is like authenticity.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, yeah, it can replicate a lot of things, but like you said, it can't replicate the true human connection and authenticity. So I think authenticity is actually what's going to be that gets people ahead.
Well, it's just a tool, right?
Yeah.
It's literally just a tool.
Just like a lot of things.
And, but check this out. AI is a loose term right? It's used loosely. So, let's say, Jeff Ruby's Steakhouse downtown, they charge, $100 for a steak versus Outback that charges $20.
Yeah.
Right? The difference between the $100 steak and the 20, the experience and everything else.
Yeah.
People are slow to learn that with AI. So again, if it's a $29 a month AI subscription thing, it's not going to change your life. Okay,
Yeah.
It's not going to make you $1 gazillion. It's $29 a month that literally my 15-year-old son can use. You know what I mean, and stuff like that. So, understanding the $100 steak version of AI versus the $20 steak version of AI,
huge difference.
Absolutely. And
what I want to start with is brand development.
Okay,
let me hear what you got to say about your top points in developing your brand or your personal brand.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are the key things to focus on in order to succeed?
Yeah. So I worked with a company called Brand Builders for a while, and it was here's where we started. So the first question that they asked me was, where do you spend your time?
Mm-hmm.
And then they asked me, where do you make your money? And they were finding out if that was in alignment.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. All right. So that was a big deal.
Interesting.
All right. The other question they asked me is, what one-word problem do you solve?
Yeah.
Dang, you got to think about that for a minute. What one-word problem do you solve? Came down to mine was confidence, right? All right. Now you need a statement that supports that. Remember? All right. So how do I help people find confidence? Right? By breaking down the playbook of top performers so they can have success too. That's my brand positioning statement. Mm-hmm. Then you got to have an expert bio that proves that you have a track record to do that. So there's a lot of folks out there that are seeing people that they want to emulate, that they want to be, just like a kid does with a baseball player, right? And they're putting content out around what they saw their hero do.
Yeah.
Problem is their hero lived that life and had the track record and did it, and you haven't yet. So it doesn't come off as authentic. It feels copied and pasted.
You got to create your own hero.
Well, you definitely do. So, so as far as like building a brand, like, what are you known for? There's two. You're known as from people in person locally, but you're also known online. And when you ask ChatGPT, who is Nick Hyder, does that match what people know me for that know me personally or in person?
Super cool.
Two worlds that we live in, right? And your personal brand at the end of the day. So Brad used to always say, just meeting new people, excuse me, and networking. Not long ago, years ago, people would say, I'd meet them. Hey, I'm Nick Hyder. What do you do? I'd have to think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
Bro, you're not that's not dialed in at all, right? So
yeah.
And instead, what do you do? I run this company. Well, Brad taught me, he was like, that's not really what I'm asking you. I'm asking you what you do for other people, right? So Nick Hyder, what do you do? I break down the playbook of top performers so you can have that success too. And all my companies are in line with that, right? So everything's kind of feeding that top funnel, at the top of that funnel, which is that one-word problem that I solve.
Interesting.
Right?
Dude.
So your personal brand there's a strategy that's got to be put down there. And at the end of the day, your personal brand is what you do for other people.
Yeah.
It's not about you. It's about what you do for other people. It's the problems that you solve for others.
That's really cool, man. It reminds me, I was at this meeting earlier this week, and I was just talking to somebody, and met all these people afterward. And this guy came over, and he's like, dude, you just got that energy, man. And I'm like, well, that's cool. And this one lady was like, oh, I've been following him for a long time. I've never met her before in my life. She's like, he's just like, talk about service to others and, community impact. Like, and it's just like, you have no idea. He won't tell you, but that's what he's all about. And I'm like, man, like that's moving to me because I'm like, this is what you recognize me for. And it's heartfelt and almost like kind of teared up, because I was like, that's really cool that that's someone's impression of me that I never even knew. Mm-hmm. And so like you thinking on that has me wondering like, okay, how do I refine that message with Relentless Pursuit?
Yeah, man.
And, connecting people and like doing what I do and service related stuff. Like, you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
How do I turn that into like almost a slogan and be like, this is my mission?
When you put out content at scale, you're either directing people or giving people a clear image of what it is that you do, or you're confusing the hell out of them.
Yeah.
So one of the greatest insults that I got in the form of a compliment for a long time is, Nick, I love your content. I love what you're putting out. I have no idea what you do, but I just love it. Dude, that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good. And it's kind of like when people's like, dude, you're the best kept secret ever. I'm like, that's an insult too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to be the best kept secret. I want to help. I want everybody to know about me, and I want to help all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So as a business, you can't be the best kept secret. That means you have a marketing problem.
And you don't want to be generalized. Like, people have told me like, oh yeah, like lifestyle, fitness, like mindset, those kinds of things. And I'm like, that's so broad though. I don't want to be like, yeah, I do like lifestyle, fitness, mindset, because there's a million people that say they do that.
Yeah.
So how do you make that a unique thing? How do you word it correctly to be like, this is what I deliver? It's those things, but in its own way.
Yeah, but again, the only thing that I can speak to is what I've done.
Yeah.
All right. So there's other ways to do what I've done, but I can't speak to those because I haven't lived them. I haven't done them. So I can only speak clearly what I've done, or confidently and clearly about with what I've done. So again, people will come to me and say, there's another way to do it. I want to do it that way. That's awesome. I'm not the guy to help you do that because I haven't done that. Right. So that's the thing. And there's enough people out there that you don't have to, you don't have to sell people something they don't need to make a living. You need to get better at marketing and have a more clear path to the people that actually need your help.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people who need help in so many ways. So they're out there.
Yeah, and there's only two reasons that people don't do things, in my opinion. Number one is they have a mindset issue. They don't actually believe they're worthy. They don't actually believe they should have it.
Yeah.
Right? So, and again, like I asked one of my clients the other day, if you were going to be famous, what would you be famous for? Didn't know the answer. I was like, well, what are we doing?
Yeah.
How can we go any further right now? Right? But if you don't believe that, you can have the success that can come from whatever it is that you're doing, if you don't think you're worthy of that, it won't happen. You're never going to outlive your own self-image.
It goes back to, we were talking about Andy Frisella earlier.
Yeah.
If one thing he said that stuck with me is like, the most important thing is believing in yourself.
That's it.
Because there's going to be times you get to like where I've faced it. I've been here just kind of isolated. You don't hear the outside world or what they're saying, but it's like, it is just you, and you got to dig deep and believe in yourself more than anything.
Well, dude, think about this. If you tell yourself over and over again you're going to do something and you don't, like let's just say, like my son, this is something I'm on him about. He has a hard time getting up with his alarm, right? So at the end of the day, he's like, I'm going to get up at, let's say, 7 a.m. I'm going to get up at 7, and you don't. And that happens, let's just say, 250 times over the next 3 or 4 years. Well, there's going to be a time in that game when the game's on the line and he's in the box, and he's going to tell himself, I've got this. I'm going to be successful. Well, think about all the times that he lied to himself before when he told himself he was going to get up and he didn't. So how does your brain know who to trust?
Oof.
Right? So all these resolutions that people make and they stop and they quit and they fail, you're not going to outlive your own self-image. Your confidence is your memory of previous success. It's you doing what you said you were going to do over and over and over again. And by the way, I talk to myself a lot. I tell myself all the time, multiple times daily, driving over here today, I'm a horse that you bet on. Believe it.
Hell yeah, man.
Okay? Facts. So, and I've said it enough times that I do believe it. And you can feel it when I'm in the room, right? And that's why people do business with me. They can feel the security. And if I lie to myself all the time, you can't go in and fake that. Right? You cannot. Yeah. So, and then the other reason that people aren't successful in something is they don't believe in themselves, number one. Number two is they don't believe in what it is that they're trying to do. So they don't actually, like, let's say, like social media. There's a lot of folks that still don't believe in social media. I'm like, no, I think it's a mindset issue, and you don't believe you can be successful on social media because you can look around and see that everybody is on social media. And you can see the most powerful figures in the world are leveraging it and are on it. So to say it doesn't work isn't indeed fact, and you don't believe that. You believe it doesn't work for you.
Yes. And then just breaking from that mindset can change the whole trajectory.
That's exactly right. Dude, I'm a horse you bet on.
Yeah, man.
And I tell everybody that. I have no problem telling people that. We're just trying to strike a deal, so on and so forth. I don't know. Dude, I'm a horse you bet on, man. Like, I'm here. So, like, are we going to go or not? Are we going to rock and roll or not?
I think you just came up with like a book title.
Maybe. So I love my first book title is going to be Life is Fair, Everybody's Price is Just Different.
Nice.
All right. So
has that come out? Yeah. Are you working on that?
Yeah, it's something that we're in the process of working on now. We've got a couple big projects that we need to finish first before I really dive into that one.
So if it gets stolen, you heard it here, guys. He said it. So
I actually
throw the other one out.
I got to give credit to Hunter Bledsoe, the sports agent Hunter Bledsoe. He's a buddy of mine. We've coached together. He told our 11-year-old baseball team that, and that's where I got it from. And I told him, I was like, I'm going to give you credit on it. And I told him, I was like, if you don't put it out for a book, I will. And he said, you can have it. And I was like, well, you're going to get credit for it. He said it, not me.
There's a lot, and you can leverage. Having a book is a huge tool as well to have in the arsenal. I mean, I talked about it. It's the difference between getting paid $4,000 and $10,000 at a speaking event.
Absolutely.
You know, and I was like, because I spoke at MTSU last year, and this guy that was like the main speaker, he was telling me that. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, just do it. And I was like, well, I don't know about me and my story. He's like, I just don't feel, who am I to write about myself? He's like, you got to get out of that mindset. He said, I dealt with the same thing. So I've actually been working on it. I got the outline and stuff.
Well, think about this. Yeah. You know, if you don't have confidence in yourself, okay, why would you ask somebody else to do something you can't do?
Exactly.
If you don't believe in yourself, but I need you to believe in me.
Yeah.
That ain't fair.
I think for me, it's like you know, I'm big on remaining humble no matter where I go in life, right?
Well, be careful with that. So remember, humble.
It can stunt you, yeah.
Well, think about this, though. Have you ever looked up the definition of humble?
Not really.
Oh, this is good. I love this. All right, ready? So hold on.
I mean, most people probably haven't looked at the definition.
No, right? and it's a word that we use. So it's in the Bible. Humble yourself to the Lord, right? So again, the definition of humble. Actually, I need the definition. There it is. Humble definition. So check this out: having or showing a modest or low estimate of one's own importance.
Damn.
So do you want to be humble to other men?
Screw that.
That's right. But you can humble yourself to the Lord. That's the thing. So even then, like, what does that word actually mean?
Interesting.
Right? So, yeah, the word mindset gets misused all the time. I was doing a keynote one time. I was talking about mindset, and it dawned on me. I was like, hey, I want to figure out make sure we're talking about the same thing. I asked 8 different people what their definition of mindset was. I got 8 different answers. We were all talking about different things. Yeah. I didn't clear, like, you can go to Coach Prime in his, when they show in the classroom stuff, he defines words before he talks about them to make sure everybody's talking about the same thing. He puts the word and the definition on the big screen before he talks about it. We're talking about confidence. Cool. This is what confidence means. That way everybody's at the same place at the same time talking about the same thing.
Yeah, that's really cool. Do you have, like, when you speak, do you have like an acronym or something you use or something that you give people to kind of hold on to?
Not really. But I do. I want to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing. So whatever it is that we may be talking about, whether it be a personal brand or social media, like, what does social media mean? Yeah. Right. You know. And it's crazy the opinions that people have about social media. It's called social media at the end of the day. So how social is your media? That's number one. But again, like, you know, people have opinions about platforms and so on and so forth. Again, my Instagram isn't for me; it's for everybody that looks at it.
They're all valuable.
So it doesn't matter if I like Instagram or not. It matters that the people that like Instagram, that I'm there.
Truth.
Right. So that's the most common question I get about this stuff. It's like, you know, I'm not a big fan of, like, X. So should I have an X? I'm like, well, can you help people on X? Do you have customers do you have potential customers on X?
Yeah.
Well, you know, again, I might not watch the ABC network, but I might have a lot of clients that would, and I need to be there in front of them so they can see it, you know? So Jesus said, when he told his disciples, he said, go where they are.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? So that's what you got to do. And people are on this thing right here, so you got to get on it.
Yeah, man. I love that, dude. You know, it's very interesting. A lot of the things that you point out that are just obvious.
Correct. That's exactly right.
Simplicity is the key. You know, you go through life with common sense or whatever. You're just like, man, if people just look at it, it's just such a simple concept.
Yeah.
But for some reason, that's very difficult.
Even when you learn this stuff, it can be challenging to talk about it. So again, how do you get good at talking about things? You practice it. You do it through repetition, just like anything else. You can't watch YouTube videos and become a great golfer. Yeah. Right. All right. But you can learn a lot about the game that you can go out when you go practice and you go swing that club a bunch of times, and you can take what you learned off YouTube and apply it. But, you know, and you can't get good at speaking or being a guest on podcasts by watching other people do it. You got to go do it and put in the reps.
Oh, 100%. You know, it's just like podcasting. You know, when I first started podcasting, sure, I've always been able to carry a conversation with anybody, but at the same time, if I go back and listen now, like, I'm just like, it's a night and day difference of how I carry the conversation. You know, it's a lot smoother. Yeah. You just become more well-spoken over time. So even if you want to start a podcast and you don't feel like all the confidence in the world, just do it. Yeah. I mean, it's just, you got to be willing to adapt to anything. Yeah. And you're just going to grow by just
absolutely
taking action.
There's zero movement without action.
Yep.
Right. So you have to, taking action is the most important part, because then you can re-aim.
And it's got to be purposeful. It's got to be intentional.
Absolutely. You got to get ready to shoot, and then you got to be able to make adjustments along the way.
Yeah. You'll like this, man. I talked about the acronym thing, but when I spoke, I came up with this acronym called GRIT. Because, you know, at the time, too, I'm bald. I got head tattoos. So I go MTSU. Like,
it's memorable.
I look like a gritty guy.
It's memorable.
Yes. And so I was like, grit, you know. But G was for gratitude. So, and understanding gratitude at the deepest level, like finding gratitude in the darkest parts of your journey. That's true gratitude. Resilience for R. Strength through adversity. And then I was intention. So intentional, purposeful actions, and then T, transformation throughout the journey, and those are the 4 things that tied in that have been pillars for me and my understanding, and that may evolve a little bit. So I thought maybe you'd appreciate that.
I love it. Okay. I love it. And I love it. And gratitude's extremely important. And, you can't be grateful for something you're entitled to. Right. So they can't coexist. Right. So if you're entitled to it, you're not going to be grateful for it.
Yeah, that's good.
You know what I mean? So that you check that at the door. I'm entitled to nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm grateful for everything. Right. Including the fact that that I woke up today. And Brad says something that he said one of the most powerful things I've ever heard. He was talking to a young man about Trent's age in his 20s. He said, he said, how old are you? He said, 26. He's like, will you know more at 36 than you will at 26? The kid said, yeah. He's like, will you know more at 46 than you at 36? He said, yeah. He said, so the worst thing that can happen to you, he's like, first of all, there's 2 types of new days. All right. A new day is you woke up. The alternative is not waking up. And so just waking up is a gift in its own. Be grateful for 100%. That. But he said, a new day means you did something you haven't done before. If not, you're not growing. It's an old day relived over and over again, which is like the movie Groundhog Day. And at the end of the movie, he's miserable, right? So think about all the people that wake up January 1, they're in the exact same place they were before. They lived 365 old days, not new days. Do something today you've never done before, because that's the only way you can grow.
Man, I wrote about this recently because it was about wisdom. And if you force yourself to grow and experience and take risks and so on and so forth, and then you're going to just constantly grow over the years. But, you've probably run into it. You get to a point to where, maybe there's somebody, and not out of disrespect, but you look up to them because they're older, but then in here, you outgrow them, like emotionally, mentally, and not to knock them, but people just kind of press pause. And so a lot of people think that wisdom comes with time. Wisdom comes through experience.
Fact, your whole for at least 13 years, K through 12, every year you were a new person. You were a first grader, then you were a second grader, then you were a third grader, fourth grader, and then a lot of people get in the workforce, and then that stops, and they're the same person 20 years later that they were. When they went from evolving every year, growing every year, and all of a sudden they just stopped because unfortunately that growth was forced before, and they took that for granted and didn't understand how to use it on their own. It was taught to us, and then we don't know how to use it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you could talk to someone like 10 years later, and they're still stuck in the same conversation.
Yeah,
and it's like, man, I'm not there anymore.
That's
I don't
correct.
even understand that, and it's nothing against them, but hey, grow, jump into something.
We're going through a pretty horrific lawsuit right now over a construction project. So literally I'm doing things yesterday I've never done before. I'm, having conversations with lawyers and everything else that I've never had to deal with before. So and it was exciting. Instead of running away from that storm, we run into it.
Yeah.
And so yesterday was a new day. I've never been in the studio before, never hung out with you for a couple hours. This is a new day today.
Lucky you.
Right. So I like doing it.
Yeah.
So, so again, you want as many new days as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And be grateful for that, man.
That's right.
Hell yeah. Well, I got, as we wind down, I got one final question I want to ask you. I'm going to hold on to it for a second. Talk about your podcast real quick. I know you wanted to, you express some things about podcasts and stuff like that. And I see your clips always. I subscribe to your channel as well, show you some love. Bring that up. Tell us what it's about, but talk about the growth in that briefly.
Yeah. So the podcast is the same thing as my brand positioning statement. It's breaking down the playbook of top performers so you can have that success too. Right. Mm-hmm. So I'm bringing them in, I'm interviewing them. I'm getting the information out. And as Brad says, we're getting the information from the people that have it to the people that need it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the purpose of the show. However, there was a whole lot of people that I wanted to have meetings with and talk through things with, but I didn't have a reason to get them to show up for the meeting until I had a podcast.
Yeah.
Right. So it was basically like, for me, it was like all these business meetings and networking opportunities with high powered and high performing individuals. And now I'm doing all kinds of business with those people over and over again. And by the way, it's a great source. It's one source of content, but it's an extremely high quality source of content. And I'm tied to somebody that has a massive following online, right?
Man,
So that's what it's been. And then over time, it again, as production goes up, as that we grew the team, as costs go up, it's its own brand asset. It's its own thing. And guess what? Over time, that accumulated value. So now we can charge for that value. People want to have access to the audience. They want access to the footage that we can get. They want me to shout them out and record ads for their company and everything else. So it's turned into its own animal. And it's technically, it really is a full-time job, even though it's just one of the many hats that I wear.
You look at it differently than you did a while back. You were like, oh, podcasting? Yeah. And I felt, it was funny is when you said that, I felt the same way at one point. And then I've fallen in love with it, not only because of the experience that it's given me and the things I've learned and just the so many layers, but all the opportunity that can come along with it, man. And like, here I am, I've spent 4 hours with a guest, and it's not, like I said, not all the value is in a money sign, because one of those guests recently turned into a client of mine. So that did, but he's also my mentor, and he's helped me a lot internally and stuff like that. So it turns to different things. So you're taking this time with somebody and not only getting to like just talk about their story and building a relationship with them, but it's also productive because now it gives you something to put out to the world that feeds the machine.
That's right.
So there's so many different layers to it. I love it.
I treat it like a show.
Yeah.
Not, podcast, technically a podcast is just an audio feed through the RSS platforms. That's technically what a podcast is.
Yeah.
This ain't a podcast. It's a podcast, but this is a show.
This is a show, baby.
That's
we
right.
ain't showbiz. Check
That's
it
right.
out. Hell yeah, man. And well, I'm glad. It sounds like you're having a lot of success with it, man. And it's really cool to hear the direction you've gone. I at some point I'm going to have some more questions on it because I'm in the place of like, man, the growth's there, the analytics are there. Now monetizing it to that degree and just taking that to a whole nother level.
Return on investment.
Yeah,
right? A lot of time, a lot of hours, a lot of things. How do you measure that return on investment to justify keeping it going, right? So that's something that I constantly ask myself. And I asked all the people involved. And so, they bring some great ideas and they're right about a lot of things, and it makes it easy to take action.
Yeah. Hell yeah, man. Well, getting towards the end of this segment, is there anything else you want to cover?
Man, it's anything you want to talk about, brother. So, we're having a blast. I can't wait to get home this afternoon. Got some fun time, planned with the family and whatnot. So, for me, like, you only get a certain amount of hours, certain amount of minutes on this earth. Time's the only asset that you invest without knowing the current balance of it. So I used to waste a lot of time, and so I don't do that anymore. So I'm not a guy that sits around and watches TV or spends all day watching Saturday football or any of that stuff. No, if that's for you, great. That's not for me. If I'm not working on one of our companies, or spending time with my kids, or doing something to personally develop, then my wife and I we're not doing it. And that's all that we do. We've just removed everything else out of our life.
And what's cool is y'all on that journey together.
Absolutely.
Make sure your spouse is on that personal development journey with you, because otherwise that's how you separate.
Dude, I would, that would be like, if you said if there's anything I could add, it would be like, if you've never had support at home, you're only going to go so far. Okay. But once you've had it, you realize the power of it.
Dude, it is, and it unleashes so much more.
That's exactly right.
Man, I go home and I'm like, oh, and my wife is just like, keep going. I believe in you. I feel it. And I'm like, dude, that is the shit.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Because and you can't replace that.
If that one person says they don't believe in you to quit, that's going to rock you.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I can say is find a woman that believes in you as much as you believe in you, because you can take over the world with them.
All day.
Yeah, man. And I do got to ask, you're a competitive guy, but it seems like you do a lot of collaboration with people.
Oh, yeah.
So what's your viewpoint on competition?
Well, what's again, going back to the beginning of the journey, what was the purpose of the company when you formed it? Like, again, if I'm going to get involved in a company or build a company, the exit, I got to know what the exit is. Is it something I'm going to die doing? Is it something I'm going to sell one day? Or is it something I'm going to do for a certain amount of time and just let it go out of business? Am I going to hand it to somebody? Is my kid going to run it? When you build it, what's the end?
Yeah.
And work backwards from that. So when it comes to competition, I love collaborating. I love partnering up with people with like-minded goals. And guess what? We might be partners for a while until we grow apart. That's a part of growth, is growing apart.
That's fine.
Right. And that's totally fine. And may the best man win. And I like coming in first, and that's definitely the goal. And
there's nothing wrong with that.
And I'm coming for it. But in the world of business, second place usually does pretty dang good too. So there's, think about it, Apple and Android. Android's a pretty dang good company.
Yeah.
Verizon and T-Mobile, they're both doing all right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's room for both. And And, but again, if somebody's doing something better than you right now, that's temporary too. Everything's temporary.
Yeah, for sure,
So,
man.
just because you beat me today at school, the game's on. I've never lost a game. I'm undefeated. Sometimes or every other time that I wasn't on the top of the scoreboard, I just ran out of time.
Yeah, because, man, at the end of the day, the only way to fail is to quit. Anyways, we can talk about all this stuff. Dude, I could probably talk to you for a while just about a lot of life concepts because, I like to hear your perspective about it too. And you say it really well, man. You're very well spoken. You deliver it well. And so I appreciate that, man. You've got it down. So
appreciate it.
Yeah, keep crushing it. I do have a very important question. I ask everybody this question. What is your relentless pursuit?
My relentless pursuit. Everything comes down to that brand positioning statement. Because again, I got a son that's reading a book every day, and it's the book that I'm writing. I got a daughter that's reading a book every day, and it's the book that I'm writing. I can't ask them to do something that I wasn't willing to do by myself. So, the greatest thing that ever happened to me was when my wife and I had our son, because it changed me. It gave me a new sense of purpose, and everything that I do is for them and me combined.
Let's go.
Okay, so it's not just for me, and it's not just for them. It's for both of us. I need this. This is how I fill my cup so that I can go home and be the best version of myself for them.
Yes.
And then I want to be around people that push me too. So it means something in our house to be a hider.
Yeah.
All right, that's a thing. So we've all agreed on it. Everybody's on board, and we all hold each other accountable. I still lose my shit sometimes. I still have bad days. I have bad moments. I'm not perfect, not even close, right? And I got people that hold me accountable to that. Okay, because I have to look them in the face and know that just like my son does, and we have we all have a very open relationship. So when we fail, which is often, what we learn from it, how are we going to make sure it doesn't happen again, and let's move on,
man,
right? And not dwell on it.
Hell yeah, beautifully delivered.
Thank you.
Couldn't have said it better. That's
man.
a good relentless pursuit, man, and I'm proud of you, dude. I appreciate you coming here, sharing your story, and diving into so much different stuff.
Yeah.
And this was just a lot of fun, man. It's a good way to end the week.
I agree, and it's great to know you, man, and looking forward to doing things with you.
Yeah, likewise, Nick. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely, bud.
Yes, sir. All right. Y'all have a good one.